Whether you're fighting, healing, caregiving, treating cancer, or simply searching for hope, this space is for you. Welcome to FU Cancer, where meaningful conversations meet powerful community. My name is Juliette Jorgensen. I'm your host, a registered dietitian and cancer advocate, and together we're turning challenges into connection. Check out our platform on the web at fucancer.health. Hello. Hi, Carrie. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, Carrie Christensen is a BYU business graduate with a background in entrepreneurship and product management. She has started her own floral business, worked on innovation teams, and now serves on the Patient and Family Advisory Council for Intermountain Health Oncology. After being diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma, Carrie felt firsthand the gap in resources for young women facing both cancer and fertility decisions, an experience that inspired her to launch Future Blooms, a nonprofit that supports fertility preservation for young women undergoing cancer treatment. So, Carrie, it's such an awesome honor to have you here. Can you walk us through your story and just share a little bit more?
Yes, of course. So, honestly, it all started in the end of December of 2024 when I received a call from a dermatologist that they had found some melanoma after a routine skin checkup. I was 24 at the time, and when I received that call, I frankly was nervous, but just kind of wanted to push it off until I met with my oncologist and had any reason to worry more. To be completely honest, I didn't even know who or what an oncologist was at that time. It wasn't until a day before my appointment, a few weeks later, that I learned an oncologist is a cancer doctor. In that appointment, a few weeks later, I went in thinking that maybe a little bit more skin would have to be shaved off, something of that sort. I walked out learning that I would be needing surgery and booked it for a week later to do surgery on 3 different areas on my back and both my armpits. And from a week after that, having gone I had my surgery and a few days later received a phone call from my oncologist. And naively, I just thought they were calling to check up on me, see how things were doing. And I was informed in a phone call that I had stage 3 melanoma. And what that meant would be I would start treatment soon that would last a year long to combat any potential remaining melanoma. And I would begin meeting with a melanoma specialist for my cancer. So within honestly a matter of 2 weeks, it went from not knowing anything to finding out I had a small degree of melanoma to growing to stage 3.
Wow.
I promptly met with my oncologist, and she informed me that they did not have the statistics on how that treatment would impact my fertility. And that if I for sure wanted to have a family, I needed to freeze my eggs.
Mm.
As I mentioned, I was only 24 at the time. I was single. Family planning felt very far off my current timeline. But I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Family has always been really important to me, and I've
Mhm.
always known I wanted to have a family. And so with that, I immediately started looking into egg freezing and fertility preservation. But to my shock, very few insurances cover fertility preservation. It is considered an elective procedure in a lot of states and by insurance measures. And even for a cancer patient, where the studies show that cancer treatment heavily can impact a woman's ability and men's ability, for that matter, to be able to have children. And on top of that, it's usually about $10,000 nationally to go through an egg freezing process. And as a cancer patient, you have a couple days, maybe a few weeks to come up with that money. I was only 9 months out of graduating from college, so I did not have deep wells of financial backing in a short period of time to come up with. Thankfully, I had help and support from family and friends to be able to cover that. But it was quickly after my own procedures, I wondered how do all these other young cancer patients pay for such an expensive procedure? And all of my experience led to the creation of my nonprofit Future Blooms, which helps female cancer patients pay for fertility preservation right before they start cancer treatment.
Wow, incredible. That is just what a story. And going from being, 24 years old, just graduating college, and then like what even is an oncologist, and then going from that to finding out that you have stage 3 melanoma, and then finding out about having to freeze your eggs. Yes, just definitely a topic that I think needs further exploration and awareness and all of the things, which is exactly what you're doing with Future Bloom. So thank you. And I would love to learn more. Can you share how your experience in business and entrepreneurship was that before Future Blooms or after? How did that merge together? And how did you become the founder of Future Blooms in the cancer and fertility space? What kind of connects those two chapters in your life?
Yeah, so I I felt called to starting this nonprofit to help future women like myself to be able to help in a way that I wish I was able to receive that support when I was going through my cancer diagnosis.
Mm,
And I don't have a background in the nonprofit space, and so, but I have a background in business, as you mentioned.
got it. Mhm.
In college, I had experience with startups and different business creations, and so I tackled starting a nonprofit like starting a new business. And I didn't know if that was right or wrong, but that was the experience I had, so that's what I was going to use. And
Mm,
in my undergrad, we learned, hey, if you see a problem, investigate the problem, go ask questions, get in front of real people. So that's what I did. I contacted my fertility center that I worked with to learn from their experience if my problem was a unique experience or if it was ubiquitous. And a lot of women were facing this. Reached out to different doctors, oncologists, nurse practitioners, social workers in the oncology space. And my experience of learning how to find a problem, validate a problem in the business world is the exact thing I followed within the nonprofit space. And
mm.
to my surprise, worked a lot better than I realized. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I love that you just saw an issue and went and tackled it. And you were like, I'm going to use my skills and what I already know from my business degree and everything. And yeah, look where it took you. So that is wonderful. And as you were saying, for so many young women, this affects so many young women going through cancer treatment and dealing with similar situations. So cancer diagnosis doesn't just bring fears about survival, it does force heartbreaking decisions about dreams and the chance to have a child and becoming a parent. So looking back on that time, what was it like to navigate the urgency of treatment while also carrying hopes for a future family?
Yeah. It was so overwhelming and definitely scary for my specific situation. It just all happened so fast.
Mm,
In just a matter of a few weeks, thinking I was super healthy and what felt as the peak of health to surgeries, procedures, doctor's appointments practically every day. And it was really overwhelming. But I am really grateful for my friends and family that I had surrounding me. Even though I didn't have people to talk to that had gone through my exact experience, that knew what it was like to have cancer at age 24, I did have people surrounding me who loved me. And
mm.
leaning on that love and support is what helped me have hope to just continue throughout the hard days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a story that so many share. So many people who've fought and battled cancer and into survivorship. So, since you mentioned you didn't have anyone who's been in this situation, what do you wish every newly diagnosed women would know about fertility preservation before starting cancer treatment? What do you wish you knew?
Oh, I there's a lot I didn't
Yeah.
know. The big thing for me was I had very little knowledge of what the fertility preservation process looked like. And for anyone that's gone through IVF, they know exactly what this looks like. Or if you've had a friend or a sister, family member, it's pretty intense. It involves multiple medications. For myself, is about two of the three medications were administered through shots in the stomach every morning. And before my cancer journey, I was so scared of just getting my blood drawn or getting a shot. So having to then give myself shots every morning
Oh,
was terrifying.
mm,
And then on top of that, the whole point of the process for an egg retrieval is to almost trick your body into thinking you're going to become pregnant and preparing the ovaries to have eggs that can be ready for retrieval. And so, on top of the physical side of the medications every day and very regular hospital fertility visits, which are about every other day, your body also thinks you're becoming pregnant. So then you start experiencing pregnancy symptoms and mood
yeah.
swings.
Mm.
And I thought I was going crazy. I had to call my friend and ask, like, is this like, am I normal? Am I going crazy? I don't feel like myself right now. She's able to validate and say I was being a little more irrational and more emotional than she knew me to be. And the thing is, it was definitely a harder process emotionally than I would have anticipated. But now that time has passed, I'm so grateful for that process that I have gone through the steps to do fertility preservation because I just finished my cancer treatment a couple months ago. And I don't know what my experience will be like trying to be pregnant or trying to become a mom one day. And it definitely creates a peace of mind knowing that I have that, I've gone through that, and I will be able to be a mom one day. And you can't put a price on that. And for me,
Mm-mm.
few sacrifices, like all those sacrifices are worth it in order to have that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so beautiful. And I'm so happy you had that chance and you took it. And so you've mentioned that there is a gap. There's other women who are in your shoes or very similar situations. What specifically was lacking and how did that experience shape your vision for future blooms?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me specifically was the lack of insurance coverage. I
Hmm.
know there are a lot of insurances and states that do, but in Utah, where I received my diagnosis, less than 15% of insurances have coverage for fertility. And I've also heard of other cases where they might live in a state that has fertility coverage, but it can be weeks or months to get that approval. And for a cancer
Hmm.
patient, sometimes you only have a couple days before you need to start that process.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you might be delaying life saving treatment.
Hmm.
And that's what makes it a really turbulent time because they're really heavy decisions made by a young individual all
Right.
at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot to carry. So, yeah, and I love that you're taking this disparity that you see and you've lived through personally and wanting to make it more accessible for other women. I love that. So, thank you again for what you're doing. That's awesome. And then, kind of switching gears, as someone with a background in entrepreneurship and product management, how do these skills influence the way that you approach solving fertility preservation after a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah. So I love business. That sounds like a silly cliche thing to say, but even as a little kid, it was selling lemonade at little lemonade stands or making duct tape creations for the classroom dollar bills as
Mhm.
a fifth grader. So whether it's nature or nurture, I've always had a passion for this. But as in terms of the nonprofit side, I never anticipated going into that. Frankly, nonprofit is way harder than any business that I've been involved in. Margins are smaller and there's not an actual product. so to speak, that you're selling. You're
Mhm.
selling hope and changing lives, which is
Yeah.
so meaningful but so different.
Yes.
Um, but I have been shocked to find a lot of the similarities in terms of learning how to share a mission and value and letting donors and businesses know the impact that they're causing. Future Blooms is a fairly recent nonprofit. We just got our 501(c)(3) in January, which means we're very new, but
Yeah.
we've been able to help 7 women since our launch through fertility
Wow.
preservation. And the need is so strong. And we are actively expanding to new clinics and locations to help as many people as we can.
Yeah. Wow. How exciting. This is an exciting time to be the owner of a nonprofit, your nonprofit specifically. That's
Thank
so
you.
wonderful. Yeah. Um, so then what are some of the biggest misunderstandings surrounding fertility preservation after cancer diagnosis?
Yeah. One honestly, one of the biggest pitfalls I see is first, a lot of patients don't even learn about the potential impact on their fertility until after the fact. Thankfully, I had and have an amazing oncologist who let me know immediately about the potential harms and impacts on fertility, but there's still 40% or so that don't even learn about the potential impacts.
Wow.
And that's really hard. And then
Yeah.
in addition to that, there are some men and women who don't have the time to go through fertility preservation. If their cancer is progressing rapidly, they can't delay getting treatment for a couple weeks. And I have a close friend who's also a cancer survivor and has shared with me that her particular diagnosis put her at risk for developing menopause at an early age and had need for fertility preservation after cancer diagnosis for that reason.
Mm.
And so it's just all a sticky web.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I love that you're with Future Blooms, you're spreading awareness and helping others, realize there's a solution and it's expensive, but here's some help. Like that's incredible. So a couple more questions before we close. From your perspective, serving as a patient advocate, what changes would make the biggest difference in ensuring patients receive timely, compassionate fertility counseling and support, which you kind of alluded to. So yeah, what changes would make the biggest difference?
Yeah, it's a couple things I mentioned. First, of course, is just having a patient be aware of the potential fertility risks. Those risks can differ to different extremities depending on one's diagnosis, the type of treatment they're receiving, but just being aware so a patient can then make their own decisions accordingly. And as well, there is a lot of work being done to pass bills and work with legislation to have insurance recognize the impacts of infertility with cancer diagnoses and cancer treatments. That is definitely where Future Blooms would love to work in the future is being involved in that space to stop the issue from the beginning and not just help remedy it at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, for clinicians, for healthcare providers listening to this, it's just a good reminder, to mention those side effects. And if you're not sure, do some more research and find out. And then for listeners who might be navigating cancer treatment themselves and these fertility decisions right now, what message would you want them to hear today?
Something that's so important to me is preserving the choice, preserving a
Mm.
choice for later. I know there are women that wonder if they want to be moms. Maybe they're in a stage of life where it doesn't make sense for them right now. But the whole point of Future Blooms is to preserve women's choice to be able to have children, to be a mother in the future, regardless of what they decide in the future. And I know it is a huge financial burden and it's coupled with a lot of emotional things and physical distress that's going on. But the sacrifice is worth it. The sacrifice, the time to make it happen is worth it. And Future Blooms, our whole goal and purpose is to eliminate some of that burden through that process.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it was just such an honor to hear your story and get to know you more and listen to what you turned something heavy and difficult into just a beautiful way to give back. Thank you for being here and just for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you, Juliet.
Yeah. The conversation doesn't end here. Join our community today at fucancer.health for trusted education, real community, and resources. We are here for you every step of the way.